All right, welcome back, everybody. Randy and I are looking forward to sitting down with Jamie Garvalia, my sister-in-law, and she's here to talk about her new company, Virtual Administrative Consultants. Jamie, we're excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's an interesting time in the world right now. We're recording this live on July 29, 2020. We're all in the middle of COVID. I think one of the things I can speak for Randy and I, we're seeing more and more people, not only, of course, work remotely because we have to, but also starting their own businesses and needing extra hands because there's a lot of stuff they can't do. And so, let's kick off and help people define what a virtual administrative consultant does versus a virtual assistant. Because I think they're two not totally different, but very different things. So dive in.
So virtual administrative consultants are a little different than VAs, although virtual administrative consultants can do what VAs do. So my goal in my business is to help business owners kind of reclaim their time and take it back by helping them develop the systems, the processes, and their people. Also doing the day-to-day operational stuff that a VA would maybe do, but hopefully growing with the team so that we can really develop the systems, processes, and the path forward. So tangibly, things like standard operating procedures, employee development and retention programs, training manuals, things like recruiting processes, intentionally recruiting, which, I can do. And so looking at kind of a little bit of a higher level strategy than just the transactional VA stuff, which sometimes is where people and VACs begin. We begin at the VA level and really get that stuff off of entrepreneur's plate so they can then even open up the time to talk about their vision and their growth.
So you're really Jamie, I almost called you Joanne, really a business within a business. I mean, so walk me through the process of, from your standpoint of onboarding a customer, i.e. an entrepreneur, and convincing him or her that you're going to either replace people that are doing other activities or effectively act as their extended, professional, and convincing them that cost is worth it. Walk me through that.
So there's two types of clients that I kind of see. And one is a solopreneur who is starting out and having success, but running rampant, like doing everything. They may have a freelancing team within them. They may have a VA already. They may have a social media manager, maybe a graphics person, but they're running so fast and trying to grow so fast that I would say I would be an addition to helping them manage that team. So remote team management right now is probably a really big thing, and knowing how to manage remotely is essential. So I wouldn't look to replace people. I would look to be an added value to help everybody get on the shared vision, to be able to work with the visionary of the company and say, okay, this is what you want to do. This is how you want to grow. I can help develop that and actually put into action with the team you have in place. So there's that kind of solopreneur. Then there's like the entrepreneur who has maybe in-house team. They could have, a small business, but they haven't developed their standard operating procedures. They don't have maybe a recruiter in-house that they can rely on to be intentional and strategic and do something the same way consistently every time. They haven't developed an employee retention plan. I see so often that business owners are so busy that the back end processes that actually make a company thrive in the end are sometimes done after the fact quickly and really not with pause. So I would come in and help pause and say, okay, is this effective? Are we being efficient? Do we want to document this and do it in a way so that the growth can be exponential rather than feeling like you're on a hamster wheel?
Yeah. It's interesting, Jamie, what you're talking about. I'm just going to put it in different words, which is you're talking about a pause. I'm going to say a proactive mindset. A lot of times these things, and I think people realize during COVID, I see this as I'm coaching companies, and Randy, I'm sure you see it as you're doing estate plans. people sometimes are reactive, and COVID has put them in a mindset where you must be proactive today more so than ever. And the weakness is of realizing you didn't have systems, you didn't have processes, and you didn't document. So every time you hire someone, every time you explain something, every time you do something, if it's not documented, you have to keep on repeating the process, and that wastes thousands of hours a year. And if you quantify what each person's hourly wage is and what they could be doing in their sweet spot, just from a quantitative standpoint, you are losing so much money. So I want to kind of dive into the whole documentation piece because I think it's pretty critical. I see in companies, this is not anything that happens overnight. You can't just document every system and process overnight. And so, and a lot of times you don't have the resources to do it, which is hence why I think a virtual, a VAC is really good. Somebody who can actually come in, listen, interview, do the work, step aside, do it, bring it to you, yada, yada. So talk a little bit about the importance of, the time it saves and the process and the length of time it takes to put the systems, put the process, and start documenting everything to actually be able to scale your company and your people.
Yeah. So one of the companies that I paused with because of COVID and is still not up and running, I'd worked with them for 5 years. I still work with them. But we had been 5 years in such extensive growth that we could not stop and document our systems. So 5 years down the line, we realized we have a document here, a document there, Google Docs, Word docs, changes that have been made that have never been rolled out to employees. And we decided that now's the time. And so it took 6 months of one, overseeing a team of people, so people from each department, getting together weekly, having, accountability meetings, structure meetings, deciding what platform we were going to put it on to be able to roll it out. And now it's who's going to be in charge of the continual changes that are being made and pushing it out. And since we did that and finished it within 6 months, and I've had a moment to, during this COVID time, I've done a lot of absorbing of information. I've had a lot of time to listen to podcasts, check out new software programs. And there's so much out there that can really work automated, for your team to be able to get standard operating procedures and documentations in place so that you make a change and it's automatically pushed out to the team. You can track and see who's watched or read, or however you're creating the document or video or training, make sure that it's been done so that it's not, it's just, I guess, more professional on the level of today's software and systems. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's a process, and getting in, it really takes time to understand the different departments. And sometimes having somebody that's not ingrained in it every single day allows you to get that kind of bigger, high level picture so that you can put things into place where they need to be.
Well, I'll zoom out and tell you what I see within companies when they do this and when they hire somebody to kind of help along with the process. A company can't do it themselves without hiring anybody, but it's probably going to take anywhere between 6 months and 3 years. Or you hire someone to accelerate the process and compact it and compress the time frame so it actually gets done. Because everybody in an organization typically is at their capacity.
That's right.
So, I think companies really need to look at coaching, mentors. All three of us, we're all coaches and mentors on this call. And the clients that work with us look at us as an investment and not an expense in the growth of whether it's their mindset, their business, their livelihood, etc. Randy, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I want to touch on that. And I think with respect to those items that you point out, the difference, though, between us and Jamie is we have a physical presence with everyone that we touch. Whereas in a VAC, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could have a client in another state or in another country and provide services, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So in effect, you're an extended contractor for that company. So my question is, what impact does that have when a physical presence isn't there? What sort of interaction, communication, behavior results from that? I mean, I'd imagine it's a little bit probably easier for them to take out their frustration on you because you're not there, right?
So I think a couple things. One is I think that there's an advantage to not being there. One, because there's a seriousness when somebody comes in that you're taking a project. So I'm bringing in somebody to, let's just go back to this, training manual, standard operating procedure of all businesses and processes. I'm investing in somebody to come in and do this. And so the people that are going to be responsible for the team to kind of implement and develop this, I think they look at it differently than somebody in-house who's been tasked with a project and it's just another thing, and you have that relationship built already. And I know sometimes it was a slog to bring my team along to get that done because they were at capacity. So what I think that there's value in being a little bit removed, but I hope that over time that the VAC is an extension of the company, an extension of the owner to be able to get the shared vision. And right now with COVID, everybody is remote. I don't think geography anymore really plays a part. It's really about how our teams being led as remote teams. So we'll wait to see what happens with the face of companies as we kind of pick up here and the economy gets going and we get back to some sort of normal. But I do think there's going to be a lot of shifting in companies. People are going to be leaving, people are going to be coming. I think recruiting is going to be really important. And so that there might be a lot more shifting than we're used to. So your team that was ingrained before may be remote now. And so bringing remote teams in and knowing how to manage them is going to be key for the future. And I think that there's value in saying I can pull from a bigger pool. I can bring people that are qualified in a different way in. Yes, they're not hands on the ground in my company every single day, but it has some sort of kind of overarching, I'm investing in somebody else to take this task seriously, this project seriously, and not pulling from my already tapped pool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just, you said something interesting in terms of assembling team. You obviously have the skill set and the background for providing the services you do, but I want to talk about the staffing companies. I learned a long time ago in business school, what's called SWOT analysis, your internal strengths and weaknesses and your external opportunities and threats. What threats do you see and or opportunities in your world? I mean, the first one that comes to mind is a staffing company who's trying to place someone like you physically in a business, whereas you'll say, hold on, I can do it for you instead of doing that. Or even if you have that, I can sort of latch on and assist in efficiencies. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think that, I think companies automatically go to searching, recruiting, staffing companies, right, on Google. And then they get these companies that are overseas. They may be less expensive, but I do believe that you have a risk there. Do you know what you're getting on the other end of that? Is somebody who's staffing for 15 companies and trying to make a commission off of it going to be as an intentional, understand your vision, take the time to really develop a team that is like-minded, that understands mission, vision, values, that understands the organizational culture, and have all of those thoughts in mind as they're growing your business? And so there's a place and a space for everybody. And I know that people work with VAs overseas and VAs here. And there's something about making sure that who you hire is understanding of your vision moving forward and has your best interest at heart, and doing that not for a specific commission, but maybe paying higher at the outset for a VAC or an OBM, an online business manager, knowing that they are dedicated to you and it's a relationship and a partnership rather than a transactional, there's 50 people underneath the staffing agency and they're all doing it for this, reason.
Yeah. One of the things I see, especially now that COVID has hit, is companies across the country, really around the world, are really tuning in and updating their playbook because it's a new playbook, and they're looking at their 3-year vision and re-stamping what that is, right? Every piece of it and one of the things that's in that vision is best of class, great people. And people realize you can't keep toxic people around. You need great people. You need best of class. And I would imagine that most people are inserting the the VA model, whether it's VA, VAC, whatever it is, as part of the best in class, instead of having to hire full-time people and put them on their payroll and put them on their benefits and put them into their 401k. I know I've been running for my business for over 5 years, and I have 7 virtual people that work for me all over the country. And, I have very minimal meetings. Everybody knows their role, responsibility. Everybody communicates. It's seamless. Everybody's happy. It is really a great experience. So my question for you, Jamie, is as companies are updating and revamping their 3-year visions, right, based on what the next 3 years of COVID is going to be like, where does the VA really fit in? Where are the little nooks and crannies that a VAC really fits in, and to really accelerate the growth?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is, I think that I wanted to kind of go back to something you said earlier, and then I'm going to answer this question. One is, I think there's huge opportunity right now. So COVID is as stressful as it's been for companies, and it's really opened up this entire world of talent. Yeah. And it's gotten people really entrepreneurial in how they're approaching their own company. So like myself, it also saves, like you're saying, you're 1099ing people, you're not having on payroll, you're not picking up all of that extra, I'm not going to say, I don't think burden is the right word, but extra responsibility of having an employee. So the kind of the little niches, and I saw this in the company I work with, the fitness company I work with, is that it's really about taking the time to document and process and reevaluate and reassess. So bringing in a VAC to look at all aspects of the business, or even just those that you're like, I know this isn't perfect, but I just don't have time to get it perfect. And I don't have anybody that can take the time to do it. Come in, assess it, make sure that you are from A to Z looking at this process and making sure it's efficient, making sure it's communicated, making sure it's documented. All the things, those are things that I feel like businesses sometimes skip over because there's no time. So the skipping over of the standard operating procedures, the skipping over of the back end processes and reevaluation of those processes, the skipping over of, I'm going to recruit somebody reactively because I'm in need right now. It might not be the best person, but I have to fill this in this very second, rather than, this is our system. We have a really thought out process on how we're going to bring people in and make sure that they fit our company. That might mean like shadowing and making sure that they fit as much as you fit, talking to other people within the company and structuring a recruiting plan, and then having somebody who understands that process. So I feel like the VAC fits in that way. And I think every VAC is different. So it's not a one size fits all. I have specific skill sets based on my experience over 18 years. And also remote team management. I think remote team management to me is kind of the most exciting new thing coming up. How are you working with teams via Zoom all the time? It can be burnout for people. It could be less, people are less engaged. And so how do you make sure that you are engaging them, holding them accountable, being consistent, making sure your message is clear? So that's kind of the little gaps that VACs fill, and also taking that VA role at times if needed.
What businesses don't lend themselves well to a VAC?
I honestly think large companies don't lend themselves well. They already have so many layers. I think it's hard for somebody from the outside to break into a company or corporation that's larger. I think there's a sweet spot between 1 to 20 employees, 1 to 15 employees, where that growth is really happening and that entrepreneur, that visionary sees it and just, doesn't have the structure in place. So that's my sweet spot. I'm sure another VAC will say, oh, I love working with large companies and this works all the time. I just can speak to what my comfort level and where my excitement is. So large companies, they have their culture, they have their system, and it's hard to break into the there's a lot of people gunning for different positions. So there's a lot of politics, I should say, in a larger company.
I'd imagine you would bring such an extraordinary amount of talent that I'm sure there are, contracts that want to turn into more of a permanent relationship. And you have to say, no, I'm going to hold true to being a VAC, and I'm really not interested in coming on as an employee. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine that's happened more than once.
Well, so, I still work for a company that just is not up and running right now for COVID. So this pandemic has been my launching point for this company.
And it's a fitness company, I assume.
It's a fitness company. And I stay true to them. I'm very loyal to them. And I want to continue working for them. As soon as we're back up and running, we'll decide, based on clients, how that looks. But there is a freedom and a real empowerment to owning my own business as much as it is any entrepreneur. And so I'm excited about that journey. And yes, as I move forward, other than that fitness company, I do not see myself committing, to any specific organization long term.
Yeah, I'd imagine that with the VAC space and what you're doing, explosive growth, especially with many of the business owners I represent and talk to day in and day out. Their biggest complaint is finding people.
Yeah.
Nobody is out there to work for a myriad of reasons that we could talk about. But that being said, there's a huge gap in the labor market, and people simply don't want to be placed. But I'm sure there are people that want to work when the time comes, and those that want to work now. It's just a function of finding them. So, yes. When I think of you, Jamie, I also think of you with an extension of everything else that you bring, whether it includes not just your talents, but also people, professional services, and everything else. Like, you talked about, the standard operating, the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. I mean, you could go into a company, not be too familiar with it, but have to learn and learn that store in a box for the most part, and then try to create this wheel for everyone. So it's not being reinvented all the time.
Yes, absolutely. It is a really exciting time. And as far as finding the gap between finding talent, I think that it's going to change. The next 6 months are going to change immensely. Either the labor pool is going to be so great, or people are going to be really looking to just shift, that it's going to be kind of like the Wild West out there. And you're going to have to figure out how and what you want as a business owner, so that you can sort through all kind of the madness that's going to be out there. And I think it's both exciting for employees, because I do feel like, although right now it seems super scarce on the jobs that are available, I really think that there's going to be a whole explosion of new opportunity for people. And I do think this pandemic has allowed people to pause and say, what do I want? Both employers and employees. So, yeah.
I want to go back, Jamie, to something you said in the very beginning of what you do. And one of the things you talked about was reclaiming people's time. Yeah. And one of the things Randy and I always like to focus on is mindset. And the mindset of letting things go and delegating and freeing up your time to do activities you get paid for versus activities you don't get paid for that you need to delegate is very difficult for every business owner. And so, if you just look at if you look at something Monday through Friday, if you can figure out a way to save 6 minutes a day, that's 24 hours in a year, just looking Monday through Friday. And so you expand on that. And so I just want to kind of dive into that a little bit, not only about how you reclaim people's time, but the mindset of people surrendering and letting go to allowing someone else to really delegate to them to free up their time to do what they need to do. So talk about how you kind of talked on that track to your.
Yeah, I think this is the hardest thing for people who've grown their business from scratch. I mean, releasing I empathize with that, because this has gotten them X amount of level of success, but now it's getting overwhelming. And so I think the key is knowing that who you're hiring to take on those delegated tasks, you trust implicitly, you've communicated the expectations, you understand how to have meetings and hold them accountable, and you can be as much part of the process or not. But ultimately, speaking to delegation, it's for the person who's delegating, as hard as it is. And it's kind of like the long game, right? You know, in the beginning, it might seem difficult, it might be scary, but the long game is a freedom. And the more you delegate, the better you get at delegating, the more you build up your trusted team, the more you can delegate and you can see, oh, that person thinks like me. I've kind of trained them to think like me in my business. I know that they can make this decision and I'm going to be good with it. So it's a trust, it's a relationship, and it's kind of like a muscle. You know, so but it's hard. I mean, it's really hard, especially for people who are, you know, probably 2 to 3 years into their business and just have done everything to release that is, you know, I have real understanding of that difficulty.
Yeah, it's you know, I could see, you know, someone whose business is still still somewhat nascent. You know, I don't know what the timeline is, whether it's 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, but I've been doing this for 23 years. And it would be nearly impossible for me to give anybody the reins or trust. Trust is different than giving people the ability to captain the ship, because I still think, you know, fundamentally, you still have to know, you know, where you are in the road and what direction to take. But the one thing that I admire about what you're doing is, as John points out, the reclamation, that reclaiming the me time, the family time, my alone time, and giving somebody the ability to step away, even temporarily. It could be for an afternoon. It could be for a walk at the mall. It could be for a walk in the park. Just that alone says it all.
Yeah. And it's really not about you not captaining your ship, right? It's about what can you take off that doesn't hurt so much initially? Just little things, little teeny things. Those are, and I'm not trying to minimize the VA at all, but those VA transactional items, scheduling your meetings, email management, client interfacing at the very beginning through email, things that are not taking, you know, your soul out of the business, but just a little bit here and there, which will really free up some time initially. Then the trust is built, or like you say, the ability to release even a little bit more, or a little bit more of the decision making. You're always the captain of the ship. You just have, you know, like a co-captain or a first mate.
You need that nudge, just a little nudge. Yeah. It's a muscle.
I love that. You need a co-captain. All right, Jamie, tell everybody, before we go into the speed round, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Feel free to check out my website at virtualadminconsultant.com. You can email me at jamie@virtualadminconsultant.com, JAMIE, or my number is streaming. I love that little streaming bar at the bottom of you guys got it together, 248-798-3923. And I'd love to just chat. We have discovery calls that are, you know, no obligation, but would love to hear about your business.
That's great. All right, Jamie, you ready?
I don't know what I'm ready for. Speed round. Okay, go on.
Speed round. Favorite book, favorite business book, and why?
Well, right now I'm reading The First 90 Days that you have just given me, and it's a lot of content in there. So I'm going to give that just on my bedside table.
All right.
Anything by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss is great. Although you need like a year to read every one of them.
Oh, for sure. It's a daily pickup, and
yeah, this stuff is great.
So Macro Surface.
Well, I'm like a PC Surface. Yeah.
All right. A lot of kids are graduating college right now. You know, you talked about being entrepreneurial and COVID bringing out the entrepreneurial spirit. In February, a lot of these kids graduating college have plans to do internships and jobs all over the country / world. What advice would you give somebody graduating college over the last couple of weeks?
I would say be an entrepreneur first. Fail. It's okay. It's okay. Now is the time. I've seen so many incredible young kids create businesses over this time that I'm blown away at. Be creative. Don't be worried about failing. Go for it.
We've had a few on the show.
Yeah, that is an amazing series. I've loved watching them. They're amazing. I'm so impressed.
Yeah. No, I agree. Randy, any last minute questions for Jamie?
You know what? I before this show, I did not. I've known what a virtual assistant was, but seeing the VAC, that's a step above. Again, not to minimize, but because of the skill set you provide and all of your experiences. I mean, it's something that I think a lot of people would benefit from, and something that I think I'm going to want to learn a lot more about.
Thank you, Randy. Thanks. Thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a blast. I appreciate it.
Jamie, I'm happy for the growth of your business. I'm excited for you. It's great having you on the show. And, I think when people see people like you who are starting a business, it ignites other people to kind of take that next step. And so every entrepreneur has every person I think has some type of side hustle in them, or a full entrepreneurial path. And so just my last question to you, as the person who's listening, whether it's now or in a year or 5 years from now, what's the one thing that they can do to just keep their dream moving forward?
Read and absorb there's so many outlets right now, podcasts, books. Take somebody that speaks to you and absorb everything they have to offer, and then implement it. Don't just absorb it and have it sit in you. Implement it. Implement things. Do one thing a day that is towards that goal. Even if it's a small little something. I've done one thing today towards your new business, one thing today towards that goal. So, absorb the information and actually act upon it.
All right.
Yeah, that's
great.
Great.
There we go.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Jamie, thanks. Thanks for everything. Appreciate you and everybody who's listening. Thank you. And Randy, always fun. And Jamie, always fun talking to you as well.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye, everybody.